How y'all doing tonight? Good. Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so excited. I'm excited. I'm sorry. Have you ever wanted something to happen? You're willing to do whatever it takes for it to happen. You ever had that moment? Maybe it's whenever you're a kid and your friend, like you're in elementary school. Okay, I have three younger siblings. Two of them are they're both five. Sorry, they're both five, and they call each other like buddy. They're their buddies. And if one of them is upset with the other one, they say, "If you don't do this, I'm not going to be your buddy." So maybe you're in elementary and you got a friend, and your friend says, "If you don't give me your Hot Wheels, then I'm not going to be your friend anymore." So then, of course, you give them your Hot Wheels, and you probably don't have a very good friend. That's exactly what I was going to say. You don't have a very good friend if that's it. Maybe you wanted some ice cream, but you had to clean your room first. It's been stinking up for the last 3 weeks, and you can't even see the floor anymore. And so you're like, well, I guess I'll clean it just for some ice cream. Maybe it's wanting an A on a test or, a 5 on the AP exam. But so in order to do that, you're like, I'm going to study hard. Every night I'm going to study. I'm not going to stay up too late so that I get enough sleep, but I am going to study. I'm going to study hard. I'm going to get this. I'm going to do great. So you study in order to get that grade. Maybe you pray for something, hoping, believing it will be fulfilled. Luke 6:6-11 says, on another Sabbath he went into the synagogue and was teaching. So I'm about Jesus, by the way, all right? And a man was there whose right hand was shriveled. You already know which way this is going. Miracle, right? The Pharisees and the teachers of the law were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal on the Sabbath. That was illegal, by the way. You couldn't work on the Sabbath, couldn't do anything like that. So they're seeing how they could accuse Jesus, how they could get him in trouble. Jesus knew what they were thinking, and he said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Get up and stand in front of everyone." So the man stood up, and he got up and he stood there. Then Jesus said to them, "I ask you, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to destroy it?" He looked around at them all, and then he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He did so, and his hand was completely restored. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law were furious, and they began to discuss with one another what they might do to Jesus. In case you don't know, the definition of miracle is an extraordinary, often supernatural event attributed to divine intervention that defies natural laws. What that's basically saying is something impossible becomes possible. All right? This man with the shriveled hand, he was in need of a miracle. Would you say so? He was in need of a miracle. He was willing to do 3 things that we need to be willing to do as well in order to pave the path for a miracle. The first thing that he did is he had faith. Say, have faith. He had faith. This man's faith, it paved the way for the miracle. This man had probably heard of Jesus. He probably heard of the miracles that he performed. But, the Bible doesn't say this, so I'm not saying this is like he didn't know Jesus personally. But I'm saying it's likely he didn't know Jesus personally. It's likely that he just heard these stories about him, but he didn't know him. So he didn't know if these miracles had even taken place. They could have just been some made-up stories for all he knew. You ever been told something and you're like, I don't know that I believe that, and then you find out it wasn't true? That wasn't the case with this. Everything that this man had heard, it was true. That being said, he had no idea. Oh yeah, I said that. He had no idea if these miracles even happened. He chose to have faith and believe that it was possible for Jesus to heal him, and that led to his miracle. Let me tell you something. I've seen the Lord move. I don't know if you have, but I have. So I'm going to tell you about it. All right? I've seen the Lord move a lot of times, but the time that I'm going to tell you about right now happened in 2023 and in 2024. Some of you have probably heard this story. My mom's a heart patient. Okay, she was born with some heart defects and whatnot. And in 2023, she became deathly ill. And she, I've never seen my mom like this, okay? So that's kind of scary. And she ended up with an infection in her heart and in her bloodstream. And like I said, she became deathly ill. And there were some other things going on in my life on top of me worrying about her. And I developed this anxiety and I was just anxious all the time, and I was constantly worried about my mom, I was constantly worried about everything else in my life, and I just had to drop things in my life. I just had to let things go. The Lord miraculously healed her. My dad was at a service, and the pastor was like, hey, we need to pray for him and for his wife. And so they prayed for her. And my mom texted the pastor said, he said, I believe there's going to be a shift in her body. And my mom ended up texting my dad later, and it's like, there has been a shift in my body. She did not talk to that pastor. That was all God. That was besides the point. I thought that was a cool story. The story's relevant, just that part was a little off. Anyways, so she is miraculously healed. It's crazy. It's awesome. She had a much speedy recovery than she should have had, than she physically should have. And the next year, the following year, 2024, she came down with this deathly sickness, infection. There goes the word I was looking for. And she became deathly ill. And it was really scary. But the Lord did something in me the year before. He healed me miraculously of this anxiety. He healed my mom physically. He healed me mentally. And because of that, I was able to have a faith that my mom was going to be okay. I had a faith that she was going to come out of this surgery. We found out she's going to have an open heart surgery. It's be her fourth point. We found out she had to have this open heart surgery. But I had faith that she was going to come out okay. I had a faith that the doctors knew what they were doing. The surgeons knew what they were doing. That she was going to be healed. And that she was not going to have any more problems after that. And guess what? She had this surgery and she recovered. She's doing so well. She hiked Pinnacle Mountain last fall. She beat some 13-year-olds, but it's okay. The second thing that this man did is he had obedience. Say, have obedience. This man's obedience paved the way for the miracle. If this man had not chosen to obey Jesus, if he had not chosen to listen to him, to do what he told him to do, there's a good chance that he would not have been healed right then. Sometimes we pray for a miracle, but we aren't willing to do what God asks of us to receive it. In this case, I'm not even talking about the physical healing. I'm not saying, the Lord's going to tell you to go jump off the trampoline and break your arm so that, don't be stupid, okay? I'm saying that in this case, maybe he's asking you to share your testimony with someone so that they can hear about Jesus, but you haven't shared your testimony. How can someone come to Jesus unless you tell them about him? Romans 10:14-15 says, how then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one in whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can someone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are those who bring good news. Someone is waiting on you to obey. Is anyone else guilty of excuses? Okay, I try not to make them outside my home, but to my dad, I make a lot of excuses. So much, they're so good. Look, I'm the queen of excuses when it comes talking to my dad. Okay, so much so my dad steals my own excuses. It's probably not something to be flexing about, but. The man in this story, he didn't make any excuses. He didn't say, well, I've been prayed for years and nothing has happened. What's the use now? Okay, he didn't say, no, I'm doing just fine. I don't need to be healed. He didn't say, well, people are watching. How about you come over to my house and heal me there? All right, no. He didn't make any excuses. Instead, he simply obeyed. The more excuses you make, the longer it takes for the miracle. So quit stalling. Just obey God. Quit making excuses. Luke 11:28 says, he replied, blessed rather are those who hear the word of the God and obey it. When God speaks to you, obey him immediately. Say immediately. Immediately. Obey him immediately. There's this phrase that my dad told me, and I've used it in other sermons, and it stuck with me, but it's delayed obedience, essentially disobedience. Nobody wants to disobey God, right? Speaking of, I was talking about my dad a second ago. Speaking of my dad, some of you might have heard this story. It's kind of funny, but I got a point with it, all right? So just stick with me. When my dad was in high school, if you know my dad, you know he has really hairy legs. Okay? My dad has really hairy legs. when he was in high school, everybody knew that. They all knew he had really hairy legs, okay? And he was part of their Christian club at his high school. And God spoke to him his freshman year, and he said, Ben, I need you to have an assembly with your school, and if you can get half of your school to show up, then shave your legs. My dad's like, God, do you know what you're asking? I don't actually know what he said to God, but I'm just, thinking things through. If it were me in his situation, like, God, you see my legs. But he disregarded it. He put it aside. My dad put it aside. And it came to his sophomore year, and it came to his junior year, and God kept on reminding him and said, hey, Ben, remember this that I told you to do? Remember this that I told you to do your freshman year? To get people to come to this assembly? He's like, yeah, God, nah. And he gets to his senior year, and God reminded this is last year. I don't know if you know that. Your senior year is like your last year of high school, okay? It's just my dad's last chance. And God reminds him again, he said, hey, remember this that I told you to do, to shave your legs, if you can get half your school to show up to this assembly? So my dad's finally like, all right, I'll do it. I give in, whatever. And so he gets together with the other members of also Students for Christ, that's the name of ours, of their Christian club, the other ones that were leading it. He gets together with a sponsor, whoever he needs to get together with to pull this off. And he pulls it off. Okay, so they advertise it for weeks, whatever. It's like, hey, if you come to this assembly, Ben's going to shave his legs. Like I said, everybody knew his legs were hairy. So everybody wanted to see this. I don't remember the numbers. I probably should have asked beforehand. But they had 2 assemblies, one for like each of their lunches. And between the 2 of them, half of his school showed up. And so they shaved his legs. My point with this is, though, because of this assembly, 50 people were saved. I don't know if you've ever counted to 50 before. I guess, whatever. That's a lot of people in one school to be saved. Okay? Because of my dad's obedience, because he decided to obey and to have this assembly and to shave his legs, 50 people were saved. 50 people entered into the family of Christ. You might think that it's ridiculous that he shaved his legs in front of his entire school, but it's what God told him to do. The moment that he quit putting it off and he obeyed, 50 people received their miracle. He also had a disregard of other people's opinions. That may have been his excuse at the beginning, that why he didn't want to do it. It's like, it's crazy, and people are going to be there, or people are going to see me do this. I don't know, it may have been his excuse from the beginning. But in the end, he chose to have a disregard for others. The man from the story in the beginning with the shriveled hand, he chose to have a disregard for others. It may sound harsh. To be honest, I don't care. I want it to be harsh. But his disregard for others paved the way for the miracle. What I mean by this is the Pharisees were watching this man, all right? The man likely knew of the tension radiating off of the Pharisees towards Jesus. He probably knew that he was being watched to see what he'd do after Jesus told him to stretch out his hand. He saw every eye on him. He saw the judgment. There were probably other people besides just the Pharisees who wanted to see what he was going to do, who wanted to judge him, who didn't think that he should stretch out his hand. This man disregarded every single one of those eyes that was on him. He disregarded the judgment and the tension radiating off of people. If he had decided to care about what the Pharisees might think and he hadn't stretched out his hand, he might not have been healed right there. On the other side of this, someone might have been watching, and they might have been struggling internally, saying, is God even real? Are these miracles even real? Are miracles even a thing? Are healings a thing? They might have been struggling internally, and by watching this miracle from this man, they might have received their own miracle internally. They might have realized, oh, God is real. Oh, these healings are real. They might have received their miracle because this man chose to have a disregard for others' opinions. The moment that you stop worrying about what others are going to think, it's the moment that you are no longer held back. God may be asking you to do something that you think is silly, like shaving your legs in front of your school congregation. But maybe that simple thing is what brings a miracle to you or to someone else's life. Galatians 1:10 says, "Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." Paul's pretty straightforward with this. He says that our only goal is to please God. It's not to please humans. If your goal is to please humans, you might want to get your priorities in check. I'm just going to say that. The more that you try to please humans and worry about their opinions, the more you're going to fail. Okay, you're never going to be perfect in somebody's eyes. You're never going to be enough for them. You're never going to do enough for them. As soon as you meet one expectation, they're going to expect you to meet another. You're only looking to meet God's. You're only looking to please God. Disregard every other eye on you like the man in this story did. Disregard the judgment. Do what God asks when He asks. So, I'm wrapping this up a little bit. If you want to play some music or something, make me sound holy. I think I say that every time, but I still crack myself up. Think of a miracle that you have experienced in your life. Okay? Think of how that made you feel that just everything about receiving a miracle is wonderful. If you don't feel like you have experienced a miracle, I guarantee you, if you think on it, you can think of something. Because He's constantly moving. So think about that feeling whenever you experience a miracle. Are you willing to get in the way of someone else experiencing a miracle because you didn't make the way for it, because you didn't pave the way for the miracle? Have faith, have obedience, and have a disregard for others' opinions. Make way for the miracle that's coming your way or for someone else's miracle.